You know, it's funny. I really love the Metroidvania genre, and yet I've never played many of the games that earned it its namesake. Even funnier, I guess, is that when I do play a Metroid game, such as the recent Metroid Dread, while I do enjoy them, I'm also usually not wowed by them. I feel like the genre has evolved over time, and it feels like these games really haven't. Now, nothing made that more apparent to me than the recent release of Metroid Prime Remastered. Yes, it's a re-release of the GameCube game for the Switch, but everybody raves about it, and a bunch of people even gave this re-release perfect scores. So I figured it must be incredible. Now, I don't know if I just overhype myself, or if those people are huffing some heavy nostalgia, but what I ended up finding in this game was an alright to solid Metroid game that in some ways didn't handle the transition to first person too well. Let me tell you about why. This is actually a tough review for me to put together, because I have a lot of mixed feelings about the game. Some things I think it does really well, while other things I think it really stumbled on. And other things that I think are just a product of its time. However, we're not in that game's time anymore. We're in modern day gaming, for better or for worse. And the only thing they did to modernize this game is update the control scheme. It now has a standard control scheme. I don't know how you guys played through the GameCube game with whatever the heck those original controls were. And some graphics. Now, I do have to say the graphics just look great. And I don't even know, I never played the GameCube game. I don't know if the GameCube game just looked this amazing, or if it was just that easy to HDify the game, but it looks like a modern release. Never once did I feel like I was playing a game that released so long ago. Aesthetically too, I think the game really did a good job capturing that Metroid feel, even in the transition to first person. You see the little critters crawling on the platforms, very interconnected world. A lot of the core Metroid things are still there. As with all Metroid games, there's really no story. Samus lands on a planet, loses all her abilities, the planet has space pirates on it and Metroids, and you have to explore it, get all your stuff back. Nothing to write home about. The progression itself, as you unlock new abilities, movement abilities, is always good. I don't think that's ever going to be bad in these kinds of games. At the same time, the map itself is very small. It's small, but dense. There's only a few major areas for you to explore, and this means you're going to be going back through them all quite a lot. It's a very interconnected world. To me, this just reeks of padding out the runtime without expanding the game design. This is one of the key points I think that more modern Metroidvania games have really done a lot better. Yes, a key point of this genre is exploring the world, getting new abilities, and going back to old areas of the map. However, newer games kind of bring more expansive levels. There's just not a lot of variety in the areas that you're exploring in this game. And to get to the new areas, you have to go through a lot of the old areas. It's just about reducing, I think, that backtracking and increasing the variety in the places that you are exploring. That could have been done a little better. I will say, I don't know if the GameCube game had this, but in the re-release at least, they do sort of give you hints on where to go, which is nice, as sometimes you can sort of feel a little lost on exactly where you need to go. Sometimes, too, I found that I was able to get to a new area, but then was roadblocked by a different upgrade that I apparently should have gotten first. So I did enjoy that there was a lot of variety in how you can approach the situations, and there is still fun in exploration in these kinds of games. So yes, I would have liked to be going through different environments, but at the same time, it was still fun to explore this game's world. While the platforming itself is satisfying, there is definitely a hit that you take by moving this game into the first-person perspective. There was a lot of times where I ran off the platform before I jumped because I couldn't see it, or just wasn't able to see where my character was, essentially. The biggest frustration, though, in that to me is that, again, unlike more modern games where if you do run off the ledge, you can still, if you have the double jump, do that second jump. That is not something that you can do in this game. If you fall, you're falling. You don't have a chance to even save yourself or get back up on the ledge, which, again, is little things like that where more modern games, I think, would have such a feature. The big negative for me in this game is the combat. Now, Metroid is never really known for its combat, but it is present in all of the games. And unfortunately, the switch to 3D, I do think, really hurt this game. Combat just felt clunky. At least with the new controls, you can strafe, move around while you're firing, and that does add at least a little fluidity to the combat. But at the same time, it still just didn't feel like enough. I felt like combat devolved into getting shot and shooting, and you're always going to take some damage, and you just got to kind of tough it out and make it through. I don't know, I just never really felt too fleshed out. Especially later in the game, this actually led to a lot of frustration, as you do get kind of charged by a lot of enemies, and it feels like you don't really have the abilities to respond to them. Switching to the missile launcher really takes a long time, and the missiles don't do enough additional damage to make it feel worth it. Charge shot, same thing. It takes a while to charge, and I don't know that it gives you a great advantage by doing the charge shot. Some late game enemies specifically need to be shot with a specific weapon type. And again, switching between these arm cannons to target the specific one that you need for the specific enemy is tedious and slow, and it feels like you are just out in the open taking damage, that there's no really good way to avoid that. And to me, at least, it felt like it led to a lot of cheap game overs. This is, of course, compounded by the fact that the game does not have an autosave. You are forced to go back to the last save point you found, which is fine, I get that. That's not a negative, I don't think, but at the same time, it is frustrating to lose a good 20-30 minutes of progress because you ran into a mob of enemies that it really didn't feel like you could do anything about. This is really what I mean when I say I'm conflicted on this review, because yes, the core Metroid game is good. The exploration is good. It's a beautiful game to explore. Visually, it's stunning. The sound, I love the Metroid soundtrack. But then you also have to contend with the fact that the controls, even with basic first-person controls, are a little clunky. Combat is very clunky, and there can be a lot of frustration brought about by the combat, and so it's a tough one to really give a rating on. With all that said, I do still think Metroid Prime Remastered is a good game, almost solid. I would almost go to solid as far as the experience. At $40 for a base price, I think it's a much easier entry point than if it did release for, say, $60. And I'm excited to play the second and third one. I do hope that they re-release those as well. I assume, at least, that those improved some of the controls and flow as the development team got more comfortable with the first-person perspective. And I would be excited to continue exploring this series. But poor controls, especially in combat, really does tarnish the experience, as well as some obtuse level design, and again a lack of variety in the areas that you explore, leading to it feeling like a lot of sameness and tedious when you do have to backtrack to go find the new areas now unlocked by your new exploration ability. For a final rating, I would give the presentation a 4 out of 5, the story a 1 out of 5, the gameplay a 3.5 out of 5, with a rating of a 3.5 out of 5. For value, I don't mind that I paid $40 for this game. Take that as you will. If you like Metroid, Especially I think if you enjoyed the original, I'm sure you'll enjoy this one. If you're a fan of the genre, I think you'll enjoy it as well. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. Is this game really one of the best? Is it a perfect 10 and I'm just out of my mind? I'd like to hear from you. If you like the video, do like the video, subscribe to the channel, maybe share it with a friend, and I'll see you all with the next video.